Is it absolutely necessary to find your patron deities? And if so, and if you're still interested, how do you even find your perfect deity? Well, you are in the right place, because in today's video, I'm going to present to you guys how to find your patron deities and if that is something that is actually necessary or not according to witchcraft. So just keep on watching. Hello you guys, I am Nia and I'm a natural born Italian witch, and on this channel I like to explain topics about witchcraft, energy work, spirituality, self-development, and so much more. And in today's video we are going to talk about one of your most requested topic, which is deities and how to find your patron deities. So let me get started with the fact. Is it really necessary to work with deities in witchcraft or either energy work? Do I have to work with a particular pantheon? And if I don't want to work with deities, am I actually practicing witchcraft? Can I stick to my religion and still practicing witchcraft? And all of these questions that you guys ask me all the time. Well, the first answer is I don't care what other, traditional witches say. Working with a deity is not a necessity and it's definitely not mandatory. Actually, I'm going to reiterate even more on this one. There is nothing obligatory or mandatory when it comes down to witchcraft. Even though my belief system tells me that we do indeed borrow the energies for our spells and energy work from the earth and we co-create with the universe, that doesn't have to be the universal truth for everybody. Let me explain. We live in a reality that is multidimensional, and therefore there are so many perspectives that create the multitude of oneness and create basically the experience that we are living. So if one statement is true, also the opposite most of the time is true. So for instance, saying that we borrow the energy from Mother Earth and possibly from the universe is 100% true, but also here's the catch. 100% true is the fact that your magic comes from within. Yes, you are not bound or dependent to any higher forces because you live in the mind of Creator. You have the spark of divinity within yourself. So just take a deep breath and realize that you can work your magic nevertheless. And I know many witches, in fact, and I used to be one, that do not work with deities whatsoever, and actually they have their own relationship with God apart from witchcraft. They use witchcraft as law of attraction and energy work to enhance their life, and it works just great for them. And then they have their relationship with God in their own religion and they follow that religion. This is all possible because you have the spark of divinity within yourself and you can create your reality no matter how or when. You just can. You are the alchemist of your own reality, and yet again your magic is inside you. So choosing a pantheon of deity, especially if you are a beginner, is not mandatory and also is something that in my humble opinion should never be rushed. Why? Let's analyze what are gods and goddesses. Gods and goddesses are dimensions of consciousness. The majority of these gods and goddesses have been basically created by us human beings initially as thought form, and then because they have been fed by collective consciousness, they became spiritual independent beings and dimensions of consciousness on their own. Therefore, each and every single dimension of consciousness and gods and goddesses have their own talents, their own, preference, and they work very differently from each other. But at the same time, they are part of our larger picture, which is the universe, or actually beyond the universe, source energy, so creation itself. And being very characteristic depending on their talents and their preference, and being a spiritual being that is completely independent, also working with them is going to be very personal, and it's a decision that shouldn't be rushed because it has to come towards, it has to come in a way where it's in vibrational alignment with what you're asking and who you are at the core. So for instance, if you are a beginner practitioner and you're still figuring out how to work your craft, you are practicing some spells, you're still discovering who you are, well, maybe working with deities is too early. That doesn't mean that you cannot make research, but I will start with something different. Or for instance, you just don't feel called to work with any particular gods and goddesses or pantheon. Well, if that is you, I want to let you know, guys, that there is no pressure. I have been practicing witchcraft since I was a child, and even though I have been aware of saints, gods and goddesses since a young age, I actually never worked with deities up until recently, because when I was a child, I just couldn't resonate with any particular deities, and I thought that it was too premature to bond me with any deity whatsoever. I just wanted to work more with the elementals and the element and the energy of the cosmos, therefore air, fire, water and earth. And to be honest, this sort of energy work for me worked wonderful for many years, and I also suggest this sort of practice to beginners. Try to work with the energy of the earth, and if you are not connected to the earth, you can even work with the law of attraction and just manifestation and your own energy. Yet again, anything is possible in witchcraft, and there isn't only one rule, apart from the one that I do follow, which it is to do whatever you want as long as it harms none, because I do believe in not harming other people, the environment and the animals. But yet again, this is obviously very personal, and I am only here to suggest you things. But just in case you are curious and you want to find your Patron deities, how would you go on about that? Well, like I said, the relationship with a deity is very personal. And another thing that I want to debunk for you guys, it's the fact that many Wiccans or many witches do believe that because source energy or the universe at large is divided between divine masculine, divine feminine, so they honor the god and the goddesses, in your altar you have to put both deities. But I found this very limiting, and I don't find this true, because in actuality, when you go beyond the material perspective, beyond genders, creator, it's one within his own masculinity and femininity. It doesn't even exist, this separation in creator. Everything is one. We live in the mind of creator, and therefore if there isn't this separation in the realm of consciousness, why would you put separation in your altar if that is something that you do not resonate with? So I don't think that is mandatory if you only want to work with a goddess, for example, that you put the relative god next to her. I think it can be completely independent, and it just will depend on you. For instance, I don't work with the energy of the god a lot, and I don't have gods in my altar. I actually only work with the divine feminine and with the goddess, because I feel that I resonate more with her and with the millions of aspects of the goddess. And in fact, I had encounters with the goddess and with particular goddesses throughout my life, and I'm going to tell you this at the end of the video when I'm going to share my experience. So yet again, I don't think that you have to pressurize yourself to perform in a certain way. What I think it's more important in order to enhance your practice and therefore also your life is to follow your energy, is to follow your intuition, to be aware of your energy and intuition so you can make decisions that are tailor-made for you, and then ultimately they're going to make you comfortable in your practice. So again, there's nothing mandatory. But now let's come to the point of finding your Patron deities if that is what you want to do. First of all, like I said, there are so many pantheon and so many aspects of creator that have been created in history, in religions and civilizations. There is an entire topic of cultural appropriation that I want to address for you guys. Now, I believe that we as human beings, religions at large, as well as civilizations and cultures, are part of our birthright as human beings, and we are all one within our own variety. But at the same time, we shouldn't go in other cultures with a colonialistic mindset. What does it mean? If you are very interested for example, in ancient Egyptian deities or Roman deities or Hindu deities. I think that you can use them and you can call forth their energy if you want to, but research and give credit where credit is due, especially when it comes to a culture that might not be yours. And I think that everybody will appreciate you for that, and it would have been considered cultural appropriation. I think cultural appropriation happens when people steal from other cultures that have been heavily colonialized, and they just don't give credit to that culture, and they completely water down that civilization, that culture, that knowledge out of their own advantages. And I think that that is what offends people the most. But if you are going towards a pantheon of deities with respect in your heart, with genuine love and appreciation for the culture, you go and visit those places when you will have that possibility. You will give credit to the people of that culture if they still exist. I think that that is a wonderful way to give love to that particular culture or civilization, as well as their pantheon of deities. And I think that when we are talking about witchcraft, be considering that there's so many deities and pantheons coming from different cultural backgrounds, it's really important to make this a strong point, to respect the culture and to give credit where credit is due all the time as possible, okay? So after that, obviously, this comes the fact on how to find your patron deities is research. Like I said before, having a relationship with a deity is something that cannot be rushed, because you are dealing with a cosmic force. You're dealing with a dimension of consciousness that is completely independent and therefore has its own talents and preference. And also, you might want to get something out of this relationship. So what do I mean by that? Before you approach yourself to any deity, first of all, yet again, no pressure. Second, ask yourself, why do you want to have a relationship with a god or a goddess? Relationships with these entities are as powerful as any other relationship that you intertwined in your eternal life, in a way. So why do you want to work with deities? Because you feel that that is the way to go to become a witch, or because you have a genuine interest towards that particular gods or goddess? And if you do have a particular interest, well, what do you want to get out of this relationship? What you can give to these gods and goddesses, and what this god or goddess can give you in return. I'm going to give you my personal example so it's far easier for you guys to understand. I have always been fascinated with ancient Egyptian mythology and this civilization at large, and obviously with Kemetism and ancient Egyptian magic. And even though I don't come from that cultural background, is something that has always been part of my life and that I have been studying since I was a child. And I feel because of that, cats always came to me as an omen and as a symbol of the goddess Bast. Bast was an ancient Egyptian goddess, the cat goddess, that before in ancient Kemetism, she was considered the fierce lioness Sekhmet. They are both aspects of the same goddess. And I talk about ancient Egyptian pantheon on my Patreon. The link is down below, by the way, if you're interested just in that pantheon. But when I was a child, I wasn't really working directly with her because I didn't have enough information about this beautiful goddess. So throughout my life and being surrounded by these beautiful creatures that always came to me for some reason, I think this is really an omen of the incarnation of the goddess on earth in the form of a cat. I started researching about her, and I found out that she was a protector goddess, a feminine protector goddess, a goddess of fertility and also war. They usually protected the houses of ancient Egyptians, and they used to use them, and they used to use her against the evil eye. And she was also considered the goddess of music. And funny enough, throughout my life, I've been a singer and a songwriter and a musician for a band called Psychedelic Witchcraft. So recently, in the last 5 years, I decided to work with the energy of Sekhmet and Bastet. She was also considered the goddess of war, but because of protection, so I decided to have a relationship with her in order to call her on my altar to protect my home from evil eye or from evil spirit because of my work, because I do a lot of psychic readings for people. I'm always on YouTube presenting esoteric topics, so I decided to implement her on my Oh my God, I can't believe it. And my cat just appeared right now. I mean, you can't fake it. So I decided to work with Osset, and she made everything more magical. It is a beautiful relationship, and she gave so much protection to me, my animals, and my clients on my readings. So when I chose to work with her, it's not that I even chose to work with Bastet or Sekhmet. She came to me, and I think because we are in vibrational alignment with each other. And so when you know what you're getting out of this relationship, you pay respect, you do your daily devotions. These higher forces are truly there to help you and to protect you. And this is what I asked for her. I wanted protection and serenity in my home. So yet again, asking and calling forth gods and goddesses with respect. It's not something bad, but you just have to be very mindful about it and be very precise about what you want, because they are not going to get offended by it. They do have their own talents. They do have their own preference. So if you are a beginner and you want to find your patron deity, allow the universe to show you through signs and synchronicities who can be your deity for you, because maybe waiting for that deity to come into your life might tell you a lot about your own vibration and your own soul blueprint as well. And don't worry if nobody comes and knock on your door. It means that at this time, you can only work with your energy, which is great and makes you even more independent, and you can still protect your home. But if you want to call forth a specific deity on your altar or on your home, on your energy field, make your own research and search what exactly you are looking for out of this relationship. I am looking for inspiration in music. I am looking for protection. Bast could be one of the goddess as well as many others. I am looking to working with magic and enhancing my psychic abilities. You could work with Hecate, for example, or even Odin if you want to work with psychic abilities. So there are literally so many. You are working to become more of a leader and to share your voice and to, team up with the underdogs and help people and do works of service. The goddess Aradia could be perfect for you. It will depend, and it takes time to build your relationship with these gods and goddesses, commitment, and especially, like I was saying before, a lot of research. Some witches are born in family like my mother that were already worshipping an existing goddess. My mother comes from an island in Sardinia where they worship, or the Phoenicians actually used to worship the goddess Tanit. I never felt connected to this goddess, therefore I didn't implement her in my practices, because I am not going to connect with a deity that I don't resonate with. And this is very important. Once you connect with a deity, you are basically bonding yourself with this deity, and therefore if you are going to rush into this relationship, it could even cause some chaos or disaster if your energies are clashing with each other. And you might be like, okay, Nia, but how do I find out? There is nothing that you can do apart from studying the culture, studying the history, hearing other witches talking about a particular deity, and just do diligently your work. Not even mentioning that once you will find your protector god or goddesses and your patron deity, you will have to give them offerings, because like I said, these deities are dimensions of consciousness that are fed by collective consciousness at large. Think about the Hindu gods. They are so powerful entities because they were created by yogis as dimensions of consciousness, and then they have been fed for centuries by an entire country and even more than just India at large. So, but when Hindu people actually, they do perform this puja and rituals for these gods and goddesses. They are constantly offering flowers, milk, they're praying, they are committed to them. And in fact, if you guys are from India, please comment down below. I would love to hear your stories. My husband is Indian, so I know that in their home, they worship Hanuman, and they do have a particular altar dedicated to this god and also other gods of the family as patron deities. So So having a patron deity is something that it's even, in my opinion, beyond religion at large, because it's really a practice and a ritual that is being done through centuries, throughout many human civilizations. And it's almost like a relationship with your own inner divinity and the divinity in the cosmos. Another deity that, for example, I chose for myself is Osset, the ancient Egyptian goddess of magic and the spouse of Osiris. I call her with her real original ancient Egyptian name because I feel that she prefers that. And why have I chose, and I give you this example of Osset? Because not only for my fascination for Kemetism and ancient Egyptian since a young age, but because in ancient Egyptian, Osset means the source. She is well known as to be the goddess of 100,000 names, because she's not really a goddess. She is, and she was considered as such also by the ancient Egyptians, the source of all creation, the source of all energy. And this is why she was the ruler of Eka, which in ancient Egyptian means magic. And since I am practicing energy work since I was a child, and I do believe in source energy, in the creator at large, and not necessarily in each and every particular deity, even though I know energetically they exist, but they all are a part of a bigger source, I implemented her in my patron, and I implemented her in my altar and in my practice. Because every single time that I have to do a spell or I have to do some work, energy work, I call her forth, and she always has given me so much strength and so much love, because in my opinion, she is source energy. And many of you guys who are working the law of attraction are subconsciously working with source energy, because we live in the mind of source, and therefore there is a spark of her, of divinity inside you. And I mean, I call her because I'm very connected with the moon, and I'm very connected with the divine feminine, but also the opposite is true, that it could be a him, because in fact is a it. I mean, the Gnostics said that source energy was Sophia, the creation. Sophia in Greek, I believe, means wisdom. So the wisdom of all creation. But if that is true, wisdom is truly inside of you. And like I said, you don't have to work with a deity to find that wisdom. It's about your own personal exploration. And this is why I think witchcraft and energy work can be so powerful, because they are indeed a spiritual journey towards your own self-awareness and the awareness of your energy. I want to give you a last example, which me working with Aradia, I dedicated this channel to her name, and I decided to work, for example, with Aradia because she was the leader of her generation. I made a I made a video about her. I'm going to leave it over here if you guys want to watch it. And she wrote the gospel of Aradia. She was the voice of a generation. She was a leader, and she was never afraid to show her own voice for the people who need it. And I thought that working with her and having this bond with her would have given me more strength in my practice and in my YouTube channel also for you guys. So as you guys can see, through the simple examples, one goddess came into my life without me asking for her, and that was Boston. I mean, my cat came over here as soon as I was talking about her. And then the other two I have selected through my practice, my necessity, and my studies. And to be honest, that's all you need in order to find your patron deity. I know this video might be quite quick for many of you guys, but here are the golden rules. First, you do not need a deity in order to practice witchcraft. You just need yourself and your own magic. Second, if you still want to work with a deity, do not pressurize yourself, but take your time and research everything that is possible about this deity. And third, if you want to start a relationship with them, either you wait for one of them to come to you and, reveal itself, or if you want to call upon her, be straightforward and set immediately boundaries and intention when it comes down to working with these deities. What do you want out of this relationship? Be honest about it and say it, because otherwise they might even take advantage of you, and you definitely don't want that. And fourth, point that I didn't talk about it. If you're working with a deity, does that mean that you're going to be bonded with this deity forever and for your eternity? Absolutely not. You can close the contract with this deity, or you can close the relationship with this deity as per any other relationship whenever you want, as long as you're very clear when you're calling forth these gods and goddesses. And I even made a short the other day for you guys. When we are talking about gods and goddesses, we call forth the gods and goddesses. We don't invoke and neither evoke. And every time that you're working with the higher forces of this with one of these entities, remember to thank them and to be respectful towards their culture, their civilizations, and also them as an entity, and to give daily offerings, or at least for an entire lunar cycle, or at least once a month, to show that you are feeding this consciousness and that you're giving thanks with your offerings, because they are doing something for you in return. And like I said, all of this is not mandatory. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys about finding your Patron deities. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want more videos about this, or anything else you want me to talk on this channel. If you want a more in-depth videos about deities, if you feel that you want me to cover more about this subject. I hope this video helped you out finding your Patron deity, or at least having more information about this subject. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking in and tuning in on this channel. I'm gonna see you guys on my next video over here on Aradia Alchemy. Bye!